Welcome to the Astrid Mueller Show. My name is Astrid Mueller. I got well from breast cancer stage 4, and I wrote the book Permission to Sparkle. I'm on a mission to inspire people around the world to what's possible. Today, I'm here with a special Integrative Wellness Leader Talk series where I interview leaders in wellness and we get to discover ideas to support ourselves: body, mind, emotion, spirit, soul. Get ready for an inspiring interview and to discover what's possible. Welcome, everyone, to a next interview where you can get inspired for your wellness and health and find unique ideas and mindsets that will blow your mind. Wellness is not just meant to be going to the doctor and having them tell you your future. We are such magical beings. So I'm very excited to lead this interview series with leaders in the integrative wellness field to give you a bigger perspective and a bigger inspiration. And I have a fantastic guest for you today. Today, I'll have for you Andrea Nakayama. She became a functional medicine nutritionist after losing her husband to a terminal brain illness in her 30s, an experience that exposed the profound gaps for her between medical expertise and the lived reality of disease. She was navigating grief, solo parenting, and her own autoimmune diagnosis. And back then, she turned to systems biology to understand the body and to narrative medicine to hold the rest of the gap. I'm so excited to dig into that conversation. So her personal search grew into the Functional Nutrition Alliance, an acquired multi-million-dollar health education tech company, training thousands of practitioners worldwide. Today, Andrea advises at the intersection of functional nutrition, lifestyle medicine, and narrative medicine with a focus on women in midlife and beyond. I'm so excited to have you, Andrea. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Astrid. I'm excited to be here with you.
Yeah. Wow. You have a really intriguing story and you've accomplished so much as a leader in the wellness field. I would love to go back to the very beginning of your bio. Like, you had this traumatic experience with your husband. Can you tell us a bit more of what happened back then and what was that breakthrough for you to open your minds to a bigger view onto medicine?
Yeah. So back then, this is April of 2000, I was newly pregnant. We hadn't even told anybody in our family that we were pregnant. It was just 7 weeks and we were waiting for that 12-week mark. And my late husband, Isamu, was seemingly out of the blue diagnosed with a brain tumor, with a glioblastoma multiforme. And so at that time, I was already someone who was playing with trying to rectify some of my own signs and symptoms. And I can see in retrospect, it was probably the onset of my autoimmunity, but I didn't know it then. But I was trying to control, quote unquote, what I was experiencing through food eliminations, food additions. Should I get rid of this, add this, and trying to do all the things. So when he was diagnosed back in April of 2000, there wasn't a lot in the nutrition space. I'm going back in time. The internet didn't exist in the same way. We were basically looking at like Andrew Weil for an understanding of integrative wellness or integrative nutrition. And while he researched all of the clinical trials that he could participate in and what were the best options for him, I started to think into what else could we do in lifestyle medicine? Is there more we could do with food, with supplements, with breathing, with yoga, all of the different things? I also just want to say, while I was researching that, I was also experiencing what I came to understand as the gaps in conventional medicine more acutely. And I am never here to disparage conventional medicine. There are very important things it does for us and continues to do with greater and greater acuity. But there were gaps, and those initial gaps I experienced were, one, people are treated like their diagnosis in the medical system. They are their diagnosis. And two, everybody with the same diagnosis is treated the same. So you have
Mm.
X, our protocol is Y. And so those were the things that kind of really his experience, him being diagnosed, me being pregnant, us just starting a family, but also going, wait a minute, he's not just a brain tumor. And he's different than every other person who has a brain tumor. What else can we do? And that's
Mm.
kind of what woke me up
Yeah.
to the exploration that became my
Mhm.
career or my
Yeah.
next career.
Yes. Yes. So what was your career before? Were you already a doctor before? And
No.
okay, tell us a bit more.
No, I worked in book publishing, and I think
Yeah.
like I was a production director for 15 years, and I maintained that career while I was putting myself back through school. But I
Mhm.
think having graduated in the arts and in design, and being a design thinker, and I think you and I
Mhm.
have spoken about this
Yeah.
before, being a design thinker really contributed to my ability to be a systems thinker. I will tell
Mhm.
you, when I'm around people in healthcare, I find the thinking very narrow. It's
Mhm.
very X for Y. Even when they try to break free from it, it's very, what is the solution? Very just reductionistic. When I'm
Mhm.
around designers and architects, the thinking is much broader and my
Yeah.
brain just goes, yes. And so
Yeah.
for me, it was the merging of that systems thinking, which exists in functional medicine in some ways, but not always. And we can talk about that. But that merging of systems thinking and problem solving and really understanding how we separate the problem from the solution. We don't
Yeah.
conflate them.
Yeah.
That added to my ability to grow a practice and a school and a business and an
Wow.
impact.
Yes, huge impact. And I love that you you just validated the big intention of this podcast too, to open minds, right? To think bigger. And I love that you showed from your own experience and story of like how that can actually be a superpower when we tap into creativity and into
Yes.
um, just taking a step back and like really
Yes.
stretching our minds. So I'm so glad that you are here. Wow. Okay. So you mentioned two big areas that you felt were like big pillars that complemented the Western medicine. You were speaking about, I think it was narrative medicine, and then there was another one, systems biology. Do you want to
Yes.
please tell like listeners who have never heard of these before, like what are those?
Yes. So I'm going to just back up and talk about the foundations of functional medicine, because that led me on different explorations. So what I was doing in my practice back in the early days, I started my practice in 2009. That grew into the school that was then under the Functional Nutrition Alliance. I just want to state I am no longer associated with the company. I left in 2025. But what I was building then, I found had a home in the thinking of functional medicine. And when we talk about functional medicine, its foundations, its roots that were really established in the 1990s are based on three primary principles. And those three principles are that we are working in a therapeutic partnership,
Mhm.
meaning that the patient and the provider both have an equal footing, because as a provider, I know a lot. I can bring a lot of my thinking to the table, but there's something that every patient knows that I don't know anything about. And that is
Mhm.
their history, their life, their experience, what they've tried, what works, where their fears are, what's happening in their body. So tenet number one of a truly functional practice is a therapeutic partnership. Tenet number 2 is looking for the roots. And I just want to underscore the plural there, because a lot of times in media, we are told to look for the root. And this leads a lot of women looking for that one thing that's going to pull the thread and answer all the questions. So looking for the roots basically means we ask, why is this happening? Not just what do I do about it? And that previous thing where I was talking about medicine doing the X for Y is the what do I do about it? You have X, what do I do? And in functional medicine, we ask why? Why is that thing even happening? The third tenet is looking through a systems-based approach, and that includes systems biology, which leads me to the answer to your question. So 3 tenets: therapeutic partnership, looking for the roots, meaning we ask why, not what, and a systems-based approach. Now, I do need to say that what functional medicine has become since the 90s has really gotten conflated with what Western medicine does. There's a lot of X for Y. There's a lot of do this test, take this supplement, you have this, do that. So I also just want to, gently critique that evolution. When we talk about systems biology, that is what I call the soup or the body. And that's where everything in the body is connected. So instead of looking at our body in ologies, you go to the gastroenterologist, the rheumatologist, the endocrinologist, the psychologist, we see that all as connected. So that holistic perspective means we see everything in the body as connected. And that's what systems biology is. Your gut's connected to your brain. We know that now. Your gut's connected to your detoxification, which is connected to your hormone function. We can't think about any of those in isolation. So that's what systems biology is. We understand the web of interconnections in the body. And even when I was talking to a client this weekend who has drug-resistant insomnia, everything he tells me gives me a clue to why he cannot sleep, and every single drug under the sun has not worked for him. So I start to, you see, therapeutic partnership. I'm not just throwing another drug at it. I'm saying, why is that happening? Oh, interesting clue. And we're working on then how do we understand those interconnections? So I'm going to pause there before I talk about narrative medicine, because that was a big mouthful in order to talk about systems biology.
Yes, thank you so much. And also for the gap to allow everybody to process even functional medicine. Thank you for starting there, because we made a big jump into the present. So I actually do have a quick follow-up question to one thing that you said, because you said that you saw medicine shifting since back then. And you used the word congeal, I think, was it, that they came together with functional medicine? You're saying that it's evolving and that their tests are being exchanged, and in what ways are you seeing that it's already better and more bigger and connected?
I wasn't necessarily saying better. I was actually saying a little worse.
Okay.
Although it is better that we are gaining more attention to the need for integrative and functional approaches. I do think that there is more of an awareness. What I think has happened in the marketing and consumerization of that need is that we're being sold more. And so when we're being sold more, that X for Y thinking that is a natural part of the biomedical solution that is Western medicine and needs to be Western medicine because it's an acute care model, has leaked into the chronic care model, so that we as patients, and providers are looking for those quick fixes more. So if you have a hormone issue, take this test, do these bioidenticals. It's conflated the Western medicine model into what was meant to be the pause and the slow down and the look and ask why. And so when I say we've conflated an approach with a methodology that was meant to augment or slow the process of what Western medicine is doing. Does that make sense?
I think it makes more sense now. Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say is that, unfortunately, while there's an opportunity to bridge the gaps, there's also been a development of focusing even more on specific drugs. Is that what I heard you say?
Just or specific treatments, even if they're nutraceuticals. If you have X, do Y. It's your MTHFR polymorphism. It's your estrogen dominance. It's this SNP. The SIBO. It's like we've gotten into the conflation of the diagnostic approach, which is Western medicine, in a place where the end result, the downstream issue, the fatigue, the weight gain, the migraines, the brain fog, the bloating may be a confluence of things. And when we get to that reductionistic thinking, that we do in medicine, this symptom equals this diagnosis equals this treatment, we miss the opportunity to look more broadly, and we're treating with an external agent instead of recognizing what could be happening internally. Does that make sense?
It's totally. I think everybody's
different operating system, and yet consumerism has conflated them.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Thank you so much for elaborating deeper. So I had heard congealed and you said conflated.
Yes.
My vision
works.
Well, my vision is that we come more together and also collaborate more with the wisdom that we can all have, because there's so much research being done in all the fields, right? Like including functional medicine. And so, okay. So very important conversation that we're having, to have the bigger picture, look at the roots cause. I love that you to say like not just one, because I have also heard a lot of, oh, what's the root cause? And that's another bigger perspective. Thank you for being curious of like, what might be the things. And then I love the piece of the partnership, that, and that was actually a big thing that I was lucky and was my doctor when I went through cancer. Like she said, we're partners. You are at the center, and we are here for you. She came with that mindset, and so I'm really glad that some doctors take that approach. And also, I also don't want to diss medicine, because I was also very grateful for certain aspects, right? But we're here for the bigger picture. So. Awesome. So you elaborated on the systems-based approach, meaning we're looking at all our systems. And I heard you say, and in my words, it's body, mind, emotion, spirit, soul, and looking at all the concepts, and then being curious and kind of coming in as a detective. And so if you take this back, how did that help you back then? Or do you have a powerful story, even from later from teaching, of like, how did that open possibilities that were previously not seen with just this limited one Western?
Yeah. And I'm going to use two of the models that I developed that I would teach into, that I think give people a way to ground into this. So, but first I want to answer your question about like, what did I see happen? Now, when we're looking at how we can help people, and I'm all for a more pluralistic model of healthcare. And what I mean by that is we're not just looking to our doctors. A lot of times people say, I've asked my doctor whether what I eat impacts my cancer diagnosis or my diabetes or my Crohn's disease, and my doctor said no. That's not your doctor's scope of practice. And so, I'm a functional medicine nutritionist. And so we have to recognize that sometimes we need other brains at the table as well that help us with different areas of care. We don't think to ask our doctor about what sunscreen we're using, what toilet paper we're using, what lube we're using, what sheets we're sleeping on. But when we ask them about our nutrition and they say it doesn't matter, we may accept that or feel at conflict. Well, my doctor doesn't say anything and they're responsible for my health. No, they're not the only ones responsible for your health. You're responsible for your health primarily. And there's a lot you can do in the hours between when you see your doctor, and somebody else may be able to help with those, how those different hours are spent, whether it's with breath work or how you're eating or how you're sleeping. So I just want to state that. And what I really see happen is that we have to sit in the slow down, that people benefit. And I can't even tell you one story because there are thousands where somebody just benefits from the slowdown and somebody asking them questions. I was speaking recently to somebody who's struggling with anxiety and has gotten off medication and doesn't want to go back on the medication. And she was talking about what her morning routine is. And it was just a wake up to her that, you know, her rising time and getting to work without eating until noon could be contributing to her anxiety. And this is an educated person who does a lot of homework, but there's also a lot of misinformation around fasting schedules and what's supposed to be ideal and how we're controlling, quote unquote, other aspects of our health. And so slowing down and right sizing something to an individual is part of what I'm talking about, where we can then trial things so that the patient is educated, not in information, but in themselves. Oh, wow. I ate breakfast or didn't start with a cup of coffee, which intermittent fasting tells us we can do with permission. And I all of a sudden am able to manage my anxiety better through the day. That's what I want somebody to walk away with, that self information, that self-awareness. This works for me, this doesn't, versus this is what the information on the internet or that influencer I follow or that podcast I listen to told me to do, and therefore is the right thing. So that's the takeaway I want to say, that we have to slow down, pause, and say, is that right for me? Why am I taking all these supplements? Why am I following this protocol? Who did I learn it from? Is it for me? Is it right for me? Who's profiting from me following that protocol?
I love this so much. And there's such juiciness in what you were describing. So I'm going to reiterate a few things that I also experienced in my own journey. So one big thing that I actually heard you say, in other words, is like that we have to take the power back, right? Because we have been so conditioned to give our power to either what influencers say, what doctors might say, like what anybody else or what the pharmaceutical companies say. Anything outside of us is great and can be great information, right? But we have to take our power back to then discern what really resonates with us, right? And I find sometimes people get intimidated when we think, oh, this person studied so many years and they know so much more than I do. Who am I to judge, right? But I love that you bring this conversation. And I also am a big proponent for that with our Integrative Wellness Network, is we are our own wellness guides, right? And like we have intuition, we have gut feeling, we can sense if something feels good. I usually say, like, does this feel sparkling or not, right? Like we can sense if something feels aligned or if something triggers us in a like just doesn't feel right for us. Then I got to navigate such things on my own journey too. It's like sometimes when we have our own power back, then suddenly we question, like, oh, does this treatment even resonate with me? And like I contradicted a doctor before, an oncology doctor, and said, like, no, I'm not going to continue. And that took a lot of courage also to like just really listen to myself and trust my instincts. And another piece that you mentioned that I really love is also that when you said that we have this time in between providers and everybody has their specialty. That's what I really saw, right? Like, so if a doctor, like you said, if a doctor is super great in their field, like mine was great in oncology, right? But he did not have tools for my mindset or for stress or for like spirituality and believe in the bigger picture and my life purpose and why I'm here and how long I feel I will live, like all these things. He didn't have that information. And so it's a really important conversation to empower people that way.
Yeah, and I want to give everybody grace around what you just said in terms of taking our power back. And this is what the book I'm writing is about. And you and I spoke about this previously. We've lost our discernment. And so it takes a little time to get it back because there's so much noise. It's so loud coming to us from every direction about what we should be doing, who we should be listening to, who knows more than us. And we've inherited this over a long time. I know my parents' generation trusted in the doctor, just carte blanche. The doctor knows best. And they do potentially, but do they know best for you and you in this moment? And that takes time, and that tuning in is its own practice. The other thing besides grace I want to give everybody who's listening is that in functional medicine and functional nutrition, what we're talking about, knowing your sparkle or what sparkles and what doesn't, actually has a name. So knowing that name is what allows us to give ourselves the grace. So in functional medicine, we call these our mediators. And I always define the mediators as what makes us feel better and what makes us feel worse. And some people, you'll ask what makes you feel better and what makes you feel worse. And they'll be like, I have no idea. I feel crappy all the time, right? So that becomes its own practice of sitting there. Other people have done so much stuff that they've limited what makes them feel good to so little because they haven't necessarily done the internal healing. We should be able to feel good with more. And when I say feel good, I don't mean eating a donut or not eating a donut. It could mean that, but it also might mean going to a dance class or having tea with a friend or taking a walk in the spring drizzle or whatever it is that really makes you feel better. Microdosing those moments in your life so that you have more of that. So I just wanted to position those two things in relation to what you said. One, give yourself grace around finding your way back to you. And two, even though you're saying, but that person knows more, if you're talking to a really esteemed functional medicine practitioner, they know that you knowing what makes you feel better and what makes you feel worse is actually one of the superpowers for both of you in that clinical partnership.
Nice. Yes. And I discovered that with some of the practitioners I worked with. I worked with a oncology nutritionist, and she was actually asking me, what makes you happy? And what foods do you, what is your soul food? You know, like those kind of things. And I needed to have this conversation because before, and it's kind of funny that we're having this conversation, because before I had a nutritionist who was very super smart and had a huge wealth of knowledge, but the conversation wasn't practical for me to tailor it to my joy. Actually, you know? So the next one was really like, okay, let's make a plan for your joy week cooking. and in what ways do you like to cook, right? And those kind of conversations. And so it was really constantly asking me, what leads me to more joy? And that actually, that's from my background. That was like my big healing catalyst was a focus on joy. And so I personally practiced that with every conversation that I had, like internally, also with doctors. And so I love that you're also expanding that for people to bring that back to yourself and that yes to the grace. I know don't make yourself wrong for not feeling it.
Yes.
It's a journey, right? And I didn't always feel it either. It's a practice that
It's a practice. And it's been taken from us over centuries. And so, that is literally what I'm writing about right now. Like, how did we get here to the point where everything's an ad, everything's an industry, everything's for profit, and the person who profits from the pause is you. You are the only person who profits from the pause. Everybody else profits from your fast action to do, to fix, to try to make everything all better right now. And in acute care, if you have to go to the hospital, making you better right now is critical. In chronic care, meaning I'm sick and I'm not getting better, or this has been bothering me for a long time, fast action is rarely in your benefit. It's somebody else who's benefiting from it.
I love this conversation so much. And I love that you're writing a book about this. Really inspire people to come back to the pause. And are you correlating power with pause too? Right?
Yes.
Here's a power.
Yes.
That's really what it is. And I do want to give like a little bit of shout out to some brands out there, and some, not just brands, providers, and the partners, like the ones that you say, like all the functional medicine ones, and the ones who have the best interest for people in mind, and who tailor things to people, right?
Yes.
Those, they want you to pause.
Yes. Yes.
Because they can't truly serve you if you don't listen to yourself, and if you don't speak your wishes, your desires, what makes you happy, and dare to listen to them for yourself. Sometimes we don't dare to do that either, right?
Yes. And I've trained thousands of certified functional nutrition counselors and my next level practitioners, functional nutrition and lifestyle practitioners around the globe who should sit in that pause with people.
Yeah, it's a practice. We get to keep being reminded of it. I love it. So you had this second piece at the very beginning where we were talking of what helped you complement Western medicine, then with the two big areas that really helped you round out the picture. We talked about systems biology, look at the interconnectedness, all our wellness systems to get a full picture for our health. And you also mentioned narrative medicine. Can you elaborate on that, please?
Yes. And there's so many little models I want to bring to people to visualize this. But the one I want to draw on now is my functional medicine matrix. And that would look at what I would call the story, the body, or the soup, because it's all interconnected, and the skill. And what I found over time as a practitioner, with 20 years in the field, is there was a time when we were acutely focused only on the skill. What do I do? How do I do it? What should I do for sleep? What do I eat? How do I eat? What kind of water should I drink? That's the skill. All the exercise, the relaxation, the stress and resilience, relationships, all of those things we do. Then we got fixated as a culture on that soup, or on the body. Again, what's my digestion telling me? What's my, my hormones telling me? What's happening in the body? But I mentioned three categories: the story, the soup, and the skill. And what I kept seeing is that we're leaving a piece of the puzzle behind. And sure, we've talked about it with trauma-based care and trauma-informed care, and we're looking at people's histories and their adverse childhood experiences. But I felt like there was more to story, and how our skill informs our body informs our skill, but our story and who we are coming into this body or living in this body informs so much. So I went on a hunt for where do I learn more about those connections, and how the story is not only informing what's happening physiologically, it's also informing what can happen with our skill set And how do we really speak into that? And I found my way to the narrative medicine program at Columbia University, which is primarily a practice or a, pedagogy for clinicians to slow down. We are engaging in the practice of narrative medicine with the humanities as a way to understand the human. So we may sit with a poem or a painting or a reading or a piece of theater or something that comes from the humanities, which comes from a human expression, to get us to pause and think about the tendrils, not just about the narrow lens. And my really intention is to bring that same kind of practice, that pause, to the patient population, where we are getting out of the chase and sitting in the, what is this telling me? How does that feel? And in addition, honoring the things like joy or belonging or connection or being moved to our healing skill set. So as you experience and as you speak into so beautifully, joy is one of your healing skills. And feeling that joy and being in that joy allows for so much of a chemical reaction. Being moved, just even if you're watching a commercial or a movie or reading something or listening to a friend and you're moved and tears come, sit in that human experience, and you are activating a biochemical reaction that is part of your healing as much as what you're taking, what you're doing, your stack of things that you have to do. And that's what really kind of, for me, was born out of that practice, which has a bit of a different intention, but I've kind of taken it into the patient work. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
No, I think it's great. And I want to encourage everybody to just open your heart as you're listening to this conversation, because sometimes there's a lot of information, but I find that when we simply listen and pause, certain words will pop up for us. And we're like, ooh, I like that concept. And, maybe you want to pause this recording and just sit with a thought. I've done that with other recordings before too, and just kind of actually sat with it and we're like, wait a minute, what does that inspire me to? And you share so many juicy aspects of an exploration of wellness that people can go into. So thank you for giving us this big word cloud. So I want to highlight one that stood out for me, which is when you said that to sit with it and to allow the emotions to come, and tears maybe. I found that was a conscious choice on my healing to actually process emotions as I was going through the journey. And as I'm even speaking, like I'm feeling it in my body, that it feels so grounded and good that I did that. And I know it was important because I've heard from other practitioners, and maybe you have too, because emotions can get stuck in our body and we can literally bottle them up. We know it, right? And so pausing, I'm just highlighting this one aspect that I heard that I also experienced, like when we really pause and even feel the really difficult emotions. And when I found that it doesn't often take that long for them to go through. It's a myth that we think, oh, we got to run. We got to quickly fix it. We're like, I think I've heard also in a society where we're trying to not experience pain, like dull it right away, right? So quick, fix. And then it can come back. We don't have the root cause, right? So processing, pausing. I love everything that you're saying. There's so much in there. And so you described narrative medicine in a really interesting way. So I heard you say you have these three areas, like story, body, and you said body suit or body
soup. So when I talk about functional nutrition, I talk about the story, the soup, which is that systems biology, because everything's connected. It's not stew, right? And then the skill. So now I usually call that the story, the body, the skill, and I've added society to that because all of that exists within a
Mhm.
social context that
Yeah, nice,
influences who we are and what we believe.
nice. Awesome. So I would love to hear any story that pops up to your mind when somebody applied this and really maybe in partnership with a functional medicine doctor or in your experience, like they start with a story. So what did that open up for them? What happened in the
Yes.
story?
Yeah. So, what I also want to say about story and about narrative is we tend to think about those things sometimes negatively, like the narrative I'm telling myself, or I'm
Yes.
wrong for telling myself this narrative. We
Mhm.
also tend to anchor it on big issues like the trauma, right? And what I'm talking about are these small threads that run in our life. So
Right.
the small thing that might actually be like, oh, that song reminds me of when I was in third grade, and we tell that story, and there's a part of us alive in that little red thread that we're often overlooking when we're on a healing journey because we're trying to only focus on the big thing. What are the stuck
Mm.
emotions? What are the places I'm not doing this right that will unlock the key
Yeah.
to my healing potential? And what I'm saying is that, like, sometimes something spurs something in us and it's soft and it's quiet, but it's part
Mhm.
of our ignition. It's part of who we are.
Mhm.
And I love those little lights that when we activate them. So I was leading narrative medicine workshops for free for a year, and we would engage with a piece of performance or a poem. And then I would give people a prompt, and just writing to that prompt, watching, first of all, people have the rest of their to dos fall away when I would lead them through the exercise, right?
Yeah.
So that is an important piece of being present because we often listen in or attend to these things while we're multitasking and we're not fully present. The
Mhm.
narrative medicine exercises would really bring people into, oh my gosh, I'm here now with this thing.
Mhm.
And so that's a practice in and of itself. But then people would write or draw or make lists or whatever they're comfortable with. It's not necessarily having to be a writer, but it's allowing yourself to express. And what
Mhm.
people would express was so meaningful and something
Mhm.
they were taking forward with them. Similarly, I led a year-long longevity book club where I read a book every 2 weeks. They didn't have to. I did the kind of cliff notes for them and led a narrative medicine style conversation. Or that
Nice.
was a jump off point from each of those books. And for the people who attended regularly, watching their whole idea about aging get
Mhm.
reframed from the what do I take, what do I do, what should I be testing, what's the next thing, to I get to age. And this
Mhm.
is what an aging body looks like. This is where I'm vilifying my own aging body instead
Mhm.
of honoring it and working with it. And sure, we want prevention, but where are we weighing prevention with acceptance? And what
Mhm.
is a healthy way to do that as opposed to
Mhm.
glorifying youth and
Yeah.
vilifying aging, which we're doing a lot of in the menopause conversation. And I say that with complete love and appreciation that we're having the menopause conversation. But I
Mhm.
think to answer your question, what I see it do is open up an opportunity for a reframe. And the reframe itself is a subtle unlock from the consumerist culture that's
Mhm.
telling us that healing looks like one thing, back into our own agency and empowerment
Mhm. Yep.
to be in our own bodies, I was going to curse
Mhm.
there, so that we can move forward with the integrity that is its own key to healing. I am me. It has to matter for me. My
Mhm.
life, my body matter. And
Mhm.
all of these things that are being said to me, sold to me, constantly done to me are the society I live in, but they're not me.
Mhm. Yep. Ah, this is so powerful. It's almost like you're describing, and I feel you're bringing a special gift to humans of bringing the humanity back to humans. When you describe like, oh, those little story threads and finding those in the pause, right? This is like, for me, this is like listening back to, well, what does my heart want? Oh,
Yes.
what lights me up, right? In my language, like what makes me feel sparkling? And that's a tapestry of humanity, of
Yes.
our humanness, right? And when we're just on the fast track, we miss out. We're like on the conveyor belt of the airport, just like, woo, instead of seeing all the little cool things and feeling
Yes.
them, fully
Yes.
enjoying life.
And
And
it doesn't cost money, and it's
mhm,
accessible to us to just even each day, the same way people might do a gratitude practice, like what lit me up today or what moved me
mhm,
today.
yeah.
And, you know, 2025, especially the last 6 months, was difficult for me to leave this empire that I
Yeah.
had created and birthed, and the people and the team and the graduates. And
Mhm,
like, it was synonymous with myself. Like, I had
mhm.
gotten to the point where my role and my identity was one with the business that I had created, the
Yeah.
enterprise, the body of work. And
Mhm,
going through that role disillusion is what happens to us at various stages of life, whether it's getting a
mhm,
diagnosis or going
mhm,
through the end of a relationship or a death in our family or of a loved one, or empty nesting, or in my situation, my child, not just empty nesting, but then my child moving, my adult child now moving across the world, as you
mhm.
have done in many ways. He lives in Tokyo. So
Oh, wow.
just so just all of those things are going to happen to us where we recognize, oh, my identity is really tied up with this thing that isn't a forever thing, whether it's our health or our fertility or whatever it may be.
Mhm,
And what that helped me to see is not only what transition does in the body, and I wrote a long form series on that topic of transition. But to your point, Astrid, where little moments of joy are actually what got me through that time, going
mhm,
to my dance class and not being anything related to that role at all. I'm
mhm.
just going
Yep.
there as a woman in my late 50s dancing. Nobody knows who I am or what I do. I'm just
Mhm.
dancing. And
Yes,
like
yes.
having those moments of just bliss and joy in my body
Mm,
actually being part of my nutrition through a really hard time in my own life. And I just wanted to say, like, it's there for all of us to say, what is it
mhm,
for me?
mm.
More, please, even if it's a microdose.
Yeah. Did I just hear you say nutrition in a way of nurturing your heart and soul?
Yes.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, yes. Full nutrition for all of our systems.
Yes, I
That
always say nutrition is about growth, metabolism, and repair. And that
mhm.
has a wider breadth than the food we eat.
Yeah, that's one aspect. Wow, I'm digesting and painting a picture of all your words. There is so much in there. I'm still looking for one example where people can practically, like, if you picture a
Yes.
person before and after,
Yes.
and it can be like an example from you. And I know we had like a little bit of like hinted at examples
Yes.
like busy life and
Yes.
distracted, right?
Yeah.
So, how can people bridge that and come into that pause and like what
Yeah.
happened? How does it affect your health in your perspective?
Yeah, I'm noticing my resistance to give a, case study. And I have to say, like, I'm going to speak into that a little bit because I'm not a fan of the case study as an author, because a case study is one example, and I never want people to think a one example is their example. And I also don't work one-on-one anymore. So I don't necessarily have the feedback other than in writing of what's happened for, multiple people. I say I don't work one-on-one, and I gave a couple times where I said, a client I work with, and those are exceptions where I might work with a family or, friend, but I don't tend to work one-on-one in a traditional way. And so
Mhm.
I have a harder time articulating what is this one example, or
Mhm.
what did it lead to for one person. I can always speak about myself, and
Yeah.
with the dance and with reading poetry on a regular basis, I've made it a practice right now, and I might open this up for others to join me, to be reading fiction on the
Mhm.
regular. And I'm only reading fiction where the main character is an older woman, and she
Oh,
usually
yeah.
dies. And
Okay.
so, what I'm doing with that practice is allowing myself, as an example, to sit in proximity to the depth of somebody's story that's
Mhm.
lived a full life, that
Mhm.
brings me closer to the reality of that being normalized again instead of vilified. So I'm using myself as an example. I'm
Yeah.
not doing anything with that. I'm not
Mhm.
having a before and after photo for you. But
Right.
what I am shifting in my nervous system
Mhm.
is, I love this character. I grow to
Mhm.
love this character. She's lived this long, long life. She's typically in her 80s or 90s. And
Mhm.
that life is so fascinating and wow. And she's at a different stage, and she's dying, or dies in the book. What it's also done for me as a takeaway, if we're looking for that, all of the longevity reading, all of the proximity to aging work has made me shift my relationship with my own mother, who's 87.
Mhm.
And so what I'm able to bring to that relationship is a little more patience and grace
Mhm.
and understanding and appreciation. And that in turn, whether I can measure it on my blood work or show you my after, right? Like I can't, but that relationship creates a shift for her and her
Mhm.
longevity, and for me. She
Yeah.
lives in California. I live in Oregon. She wants me to read every Substack piece I write to her. She wants me to read every
Oh,
chapter of the book I'm writing. And
that is so
she
sweet.
listens to everything. And we get that together. Whereas typically we think of the older population as a burden. And so I feel like what I'm doing, and tell me if this answers, not answers in the way that I intend, I'm shifting the terrain into which I am aging as I
Mhm.
shift my own ecosystem about
Mhm.
what aging deserves.
Yeah. Okay. Beautiful. So there again, there's so much in there. But one big no, thank you. So thank you for leading with your story. And what I'm hearing also is that again, everything is so interconnected in health and wellness, right? And so as you are following your inspiration, you're pausing, you're following your inspiration. You're currently inspired by the concept of aging and honoring the elderly and shaping the narrative of that. How that fills your heart and soul, how it enriches your life with your mother, how it from my perspective, I think you're walking on your sparkle path, right? Because you are following what feels sparkling to you, intriguing, right? And to me, the way I experience it, that always also expands our health, because when we deny our soul calling, when we deny what brings us joy, and this brings you joy, right? All of these are examples how that can fuel our whole system, body, mind, emotion, spirit, soul, or it can when we deny it and we just run on the fast track, then we're starving ourselves. When we talk about nutrition, in your words, right? So to fully nourish ourselves, to bring it to your lingo and your expertise, body, mind, emotion, spirit, soul, then we also fully expand and amplify our wellness and health. That's kind of how I'm seeing it.
Yes, absolutely. And my hope is that by being in my sparkle, as you said, like I am illuminating where more of us can sit or find
Yeah.
our own sparkle. Not that everybody's sparkle is my sparkle, but
Right.
that the conversation
Mhm.
about how we expand what we mean by
Mhm.
wellness, by looking at what our journey is, that we
Mhm.
actually find little parts of ourself and our path that
Yep.
come back to what ignites us
Yeah.
individually, live more in that space,
Mhm.
shift out of the thinking that's constantly telling us we're broken.
Yeah, yeah,
Constantly,
yeah. Just
constant,
focusing on what's wrong and what you need
right?
to fix,
Yes,
and high alert, like neon
yes.
emergency letters, right? If you don't do this, then that, whatever.
Yes. So
And
that is my hope, that like
mhm,
the conversation I'm having from my place of sparkle is one
mhm.
that can ignite people to pause,
I
to
love it.
think, to question, to recognize and
Mhm.
reacquaint themselves with themselves, that
Yeah.
allows for them to have that nutrition too, as opposed for me telling them how it's going to happen. It's
Yeah,
more
yeah.
the invitation for it to
I
occur.
love
So,
it.
yeah,
I love it. Oh, beautiful. Thank you. And I do have one last example from my world, how that pertains.
great.
Everything is like an example from what you're saying. So when I was in the middle of my whole cancer journey, including Western medicine and holistic complementary from all the things, and focusing on what would lead me to more joy, I actually radically chose joy. That one time where I deliberately chose to hang out in a space where we're focusing on our dreams. So I
Mm,
was a group call every week or every 2 weeks. And we use creativity and focusing on our dreams, and even with business, like what do you want to build, what makes your heart sing, and we also use actual dreams and doodling and coloring. It was mind and heart expanding, and that's what I was really drawn to. That, and I shifted from before. I was in a pragmatical coaching program to, like, oh, I got to do this so to fix my business or whatever, uh, and I took care of myself with the things that I thought were important. I went to treatment, this and that. And I nourished my heart and soul. And what that did for me is like my focus was shifted onto what's possible, right?
yes,
And like you're saying, like these little conversation threads, narrative threads, like I was looking for those and I was finding them, and they were
yes,
juicy. And
yes,
you as a doctor, like what happens in our system when we focus on joy. I don't know all that, but like I felt it in my body. And
yes,
I know for me, it felt like I was expanding my life force and like from healing, supporting my healing from the inside out, because I focused on these narratives and joy threads and pauses. And that was my main walking carpet,
yes, yes.
So I'm a living example for what you're doing.
Yes, and I love that. And I'm not a doctor, by the way. I am a functional medicine nutritionist, but I'm
Oh,
not an MD.
okay.
That's fine. My mom says that I know more than the doctor she sees anyway. So I always joke about that. But I love that. And I love, Astrid, that you found your path to what you're doing. And I also love that you had practitioners who were as supportive as you said they were along the way. So I just
Mhm.
want to thank you for the conversation and also just for what you're illuminating for everybody, that there is a sparkle in all of us, even when we don't
Yeah.
feel it, even
Yep.
when we're in the dark tunnel, finding those
Mhm.
little places where there is a spark is part of the healing. And it's a yes and, which you spoke to beautifully. I am not here to say that we ignore one thing or put our hands on
No.
our hips and say it's all about doing the things that are meaningful to your particular journey forward.
Mhm. Yes. And I love the visual of when we're in a dark tunnel. Of course, we need a spark. Come on, how is the
Yes,
year out?
exactly. Please.
You want a torch and you want a freaking fire. I mean,
Yes,
really. Yeah. So,
yes.
so thank you so much for this enlightening conversation. This was such a pleasure. I'm very excited to guide people to your book and to your Substack. So I will put everything in the show notes, but do you have like one place where we can send people to?
Yeah, I think Substack is going to be the best place. I'm publishing writing there on the regular, and there will be opportunities to be in conversation with me there as well. So I'm going to say Substack's the number one place to go right now.
Okay, fantastic. I will put that in the show notes. Thank you so much, Andrea, for having been with us. I'm going to stop the recording, but like I'm sending so much love to all of you having listened to this. Follow whatever inspires you from this. Explore further. Pause. And you'll amplify your health right from there. Thank you so much for watching or listening. Question: what did this spark in you today? Take one baby step and act on it. One small step can change your world and will ripple to others. The world really needs more sparkle. If you like more inspiration like this, come join us in our free Integrative Wellness Oasis on School. We are an amazing community of wellness lovers and professionals where you get to discover new ideas, resources, and also really cool virtual retreats. We love going on virtual cruises too. If you loved this episode, please share it with someone who might love this inspiration as well. Until next time, keep exploring and follow the sparkle.